Okay, so hello everybody. I'm happy to be here again in this forum. I also have fond memories of the last time and some of the sessions I've been watching recordings of. And just to say very shortly about myself, well, as you know, I'm Dan Schachter. I live in Israel, where I've lived most of my life. I'm originally from Norway. So words, languages, moving between languages and cultures is very much part of me. And maybe to make a connection to what Lynn just mentioned, I hope that we will be maybe able to make some use of that TAE move that Lynn mentioned in using language and using words, really reminding of ourselves that words are and become fixed patterns, but they really are much more than that. And also just to mention very shortly that being a psychologist, I'm a clinical psychologist and trained in focusing and FOT. All of focusing and of TAE has become very much a part of how I am and how I use language and how I communicate. So with my clients. So maybe first, Dorothy, would you like to read that poem that we talked about? Maybe we could have that as an inspiration, but maybe even before that, we could do a very short tuning in to, and also before we listen to that poem, and also for this whole session, so that we participate not only with or from our thinking parts, but with more than that. So let's take just a few moments to remind ourselves and remind our bodies to participate. And I'm not going to give any specific instructions, just to open up a space for all of you to do whatever you find helpful in opening up. We could call it more channels or a wider way of listening, being here, interacting. Maybe to use those words that are so central and helpful, mention body and sensation and feelings and images, and that anything is welcome, not only what seems to make logical sense, but much, much more than that. So, Dorothy, would you like to read that poem?
The poem is Our Real Work by Wendell Berry, who's an American poet, a novelist, environmentalist. He lives on a farm in Kentucky and very committed to political environmental change. Our real work. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work, and that we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not bathed is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings?
I would like to say right now that one part of me really would like to just stay with that poem, not saying any more words than those. And maybe just to say very shortly that there's something in that poem that for me kind of resonates with Gendlin's idea of the edge and stoppage, the importance of and the potential when the process is stopped, impeded, not to see that as a problem, but as opportunity. There are these words that I used, political, social significance of our practices and philosophy, big words. And of course, we will not be able to cover that huge field in this short meeting, but maybe to throw in a few short things that might stimulate something in us. Two other words that I could use and like to use are maybe in some way more simple words, are patterns and openings. One of the main contributions for me in Gendlin's philosophy is his understanding of how in the process of life, humans have developed this very valuable capacity to create patterns. Very valuable, but if we believe in them too much, they become obstacles. If we only function with and within patterns, then life gets very limited, and then there is a huge danger in present-day society of patterns taking over. And so the alternative to have a process to live in a way where we move back and forth between patterns and openings of patterns to something wider. And then I would like to read to you a quotation that I came across a few days ago reading on one of our discussion lists, a contribution by my friend and for the last couple of years fellow 4-team member of the Focusing week-long, Beatrice Blake, that I'm sure many of you know. And the context isn't important. I just felt that these sentences, she was able to formulate in a very good way something that I would like to have as kind of a center for this meeting. And Beatrice says, "My feeling is that the whole planet is in a situation we can't fully understand. And so pausing and waiting for words to come becomes an essential skill for the people of the world, rather than quickly going to available concepts that don't really address the complexity of the situation." So this is really focusing in on something, I would say, it's one way of expressing the heart of focusing and of TAE, the pausing and then the opening up that comes from listening into what comes in that active pausing. And to say very shortly something about why I sometimes do decide to use these very big words political, social significance, because on the one hand, and then I'm going to contradict myself very soon, on the one hand, I feel that I want to use such a big word as political to convey the impact, the importance that I feel that our practices and understandings have, and to say something about the wider significance so as not to fall into the trap of relating to focusing as something only individual, only subjective. The significance of all of this is so much more than that. And then maybe from there to jump into the first, I'm going to tell you about, very shortly, about 2 examples that have arrived at the stage of my life lately, and to give you a little taste of how these practices and the understandings from Jen Lynn's philosophy have or are serving me in my processes. And so the first example is from the situation we here in Israel are living in at the present. This place, this area of the world has always, I think, been quite, or very, or extremely turbulent. Those are the waves we go through, not very much calm and stability. And lately we are, and I have to insert here, of course, to say what I'm going to say are expressions of my view, my understandings, my reactions. And from now on, with almost every word I will say, there will be quite different, if not opposite, opinions and feelings and experiences. And so the situation we are living in now is that the very not stable and not full democracy that we have had, which maybe always has been quite a partial democracy, but even that is lately very much under attack from the specific government that we have right now. And there is huge unrest and conflict and huge demonstrations, hundreds and thousands of people demonstrating every week and several times a week. So severe unrest. And so at what we might call the start, the onset of this chapter, I found myself in what words to use, conflict, kind of perplexed, lots of questions about how I want to react, to be active, what to do. And that came as kind of a surprise to me, because I have for many years been quite involved, definitely, and occupied in all kind of political activities. So it seemed that there were no questions to ask, really. Of course, I would be active, and active meaning, well, at least going to demonstrations and signing petitions and all of that. And then I found myself doubting, asking questions about, is this just reacting in an automatic way? And is this a pattern? Is something that has become an automatic pattern for me? And how do I feel at this stage of my life about doing these things? Is this really the right thing to do, or is this really more or less unwittingly playing into a game that brings people against each other and perpetuate conflict? So that became a major issue for me at that time. And so one of the things I did was that I decided to do a process with a friend of mine using focusing and TAE moves and understandings from the philosophy to try to find ways to deal with this. And again, I'm not going to go into very much detail, but thinking about this meeting, I felt that I would like to share with you some of the formulations, some of what I wrote from these process, some of the words that express some of these understandings, and that these understandings and what I did formulate and write down, all of that has become something that is has become a very important source for me during this time in how to navigate. So I will read a few of those sentences. One of the things that became clear is not only the things I wanted to say, but how to say them and how to address it, who to address. And what became clear was I want to address myself. I am the one addressing myself. I do not want to talk to other people, definitely not tell anyone what to do and what to think. So that was the kind of writing. And to read some of the sentences, what came up was, do what you decided to do, and then in parentheses, whatever doing means to you. So here's one example. I won't go into that now, but the whole concept of doing is also there asking for an opening. What do I want doing to mean? And that has become so much richer than it used to be. Doing is not just doing in a narrow sense. So do what you decide to do with devotion and determination, with a full and open heart. Always keep in mind that you might be wrong. That became a very central part of this whole thing, realizing that I might be wrong. And find the hope in that, not the despair. Do your best to serve connection and solidarity and to avoid falling into the traps of division, splitting, and polarization. Know that you will probably fall into those traps more often than you like. Do your best to free yourself from those traps over and over again. Look for opportunities to learn, expand, and change your views. Pause and change, pause and change. So those are the words from that process that I wanted to share with you, and maybe to give you a few moments to kind of listen into something that might come for you when hearing this. what resonates and what does not. What all kinds of reactions that you might have to those words. And also before that, I would like to say something that I reacted to in a positive way when Lynn was talking. You said something about agency, so important. And I think that even using only that word, I think you may understand what I mean when I say political and social significance. Giving agency back to each one of us. That's a political move, the way I see it. Giving back agency to ourselves in how we use words, how we understand words. Agency being given back. Do what you decide to do. See also how a text changes. Now, as I'm reading it, I felt like emphasizing the word you. Now do what you decide to do.
When you read out the first one before, and you said, do what you decide to do, whatever doing may mean for you. I'm doing a big project, and I immediately took it like very personal, like, wow, this is like super permission to do whatever I decide to do, and doing whatever that means to me. And then when you said devotion, determination, full open heart, I felt, wow, that really speaks to me. You know, my devotion to this project, determination, my open heart, you know. But then when you said always, have in mind that you may be wrong, you know, realize that you might be wrong. I said, oh no, because there's always a part of me that's telling me, what are you doing? Oh my God, you know, it gives me a lot of negative input, but I always sit it down and talk to it, you know, so that it doesn't take over my project, but it does sometimes slow me down. And so I have to be aware of that. But then when you said find hope and not despair, it reminded me that this morning I was watching the news and they were talking about Juneteenth, which is today. And the woman, the grandmother of Juneteenth, never gave up. She would walk from Texas to Washington, and nobody would listen to her about making Juneteenth this holiday. And it took like 50 years or something crazy. Like, and you see her now, you know, and she's like so happy that finally, after all that work, they made Juneteenth a holiday. And another woman, she's in Brooklyn, she would have like this event for Juneteenth, and 5 people would come like regularly every year for 10 years. And she said she couldn't believe it. Like, she was like, should I continue, you know? And then when they made Juneteenth the national holiday, well, 20,000 people came online. It was virtual because of COVID. And she cried. She said she cried, you know? And, you know, and I think of Lynn's determination, you know, that started in COVID time. And she did this every Monday. I always tell people, I know this woman that every Monday shows up to this group. And I think she missed one day once. And, you know, I admire this devotion, the word determination, and full open heart, and find hope, not despair.
In that,
yes.
In the fact that you will fall into those traps.
Thank you, Dan.
That thank you, and I want to say, as you said, that I might be wrong. That makes me slow down, and the oh no of that. And here is what, you know, that line from the poem: the impeded stream is the one that sings. And that focusing is so much about the slowing down, and to find, to be with the slowing down so that it can carry forward. Not in spite of the slowing down, but very often the slowing down is something there the obstacle itself. That's where the implying is. That's where what needs to, wants to carry forward is hidden. So thank you for adding that. That really gave us a flavor of, more experiential flavor of this. Yeah.
I love the line about I may be wrong. And there's something about the feeling of what would the world be like, or reality be, or something, if I were wrong. And then it opens up a whole different dimension, and sort of inkling that my rightness may be very limited, and there may be something really contradictory that is beyond my rightness, that we could call wrongness, that I can't even imagine.
And so also to very briefly connect this to therapy, to have that in mind as therapists when we are wrong, and to convey to our clients when they feel they are wrong. So again and again, to use that word again, agency. If, I find that so often when I'm successful, I'm not always, of course, in conveying this to a client who feels that he or she is wrong, to reframe that and to point to that as, oh, here we have something important. Let's stay with that and let that move and open up then the treasure hidden inside of that wrongness. Which is really what Lynn talks to in so many ways, in so many places. But for example, in that quite famous saying of his, every bad feeling is potential energy. That's if you give it space and so forth. So just to sum that part up and to say very shortly about this situation. So that focusing TAE process that I did has been and still is for me a very important support when I live in these situations. So I feel, for me so far, it has been a support and directed me into taking part in these demonstrations and signing petitions, and to find a certain group within those the big, very big protests that I identify more with, and to find, yes, my place, but and also this, always keeping in mind that what I am doing now, I don't, it has been very freeing in the sense that I don't have to do the perfect thing. And I might be wrong, and I might change my views and my actions and my involvement. And that when you do participate and you are active, there is also always this force working of creating and participating in creating conflict and opposition, because what I say will be the opposite of what someone else says, thinks, feels. And that's there. And for that not to paralyze me, and still being able to express myself and voice my opinions and act, that has been very important. And also another effect of this is that when I've sensed the big demonstrations take place here usually on Saturday evenings. And during Saturday, some of the times I felt that today it is not right for me to participate. And then I will not, and with much less guilt and blame that I used to when the only option was to be there all the time. So also one could say that the word of determination is changing. It's a different kind of determination. It has a different feel to it. I know.
Hello, Dan. Hello, everybody. I wanted to share something, but just I don't want to interrupt you.
I just wanted to say, I kind of talked about my first instance, and I plan to go into one more instance, but I'm wondering, is it too much? Should we just stay with this? And Pauline wants to say something.
Yeah, I want to, but I don't know if it's the best idea. But anyway, I suppose I saw the Juneteenth symbol somewhere along the way in the last few days, and it seemed like an emancipation, that some shackles were. So I didn't know the context of that. So I suppose when I was thinking of this, the political, I was really interested. And then it stirred up lots of old splits in me around actions and, what is action? And I come back to one thing, that if it's not fun, it's probably not worth doing. If it's not fun, it's probably not worth doing. And I think in some ways...
You were saying if it's not...
If it's not fun, it's probably not worth doing.
It's not fun.
So, and I think this is around determination of will, so it's the idea of right and wrong, and that Rumi idea, out beyond right and wrong, there's a field, and whatever way that field, I interpret that, I interpret it now as a force field or a quantum leap, or it's something. So for me now, if I'm not on the side of peace, it's not, I'm still in the old paradigm of right and wrong, So the any war, it's the identity of warring peoples, that creates the tension. So out beyond right and wrong, if it's not fun, it's probably not worth doing. And there was one other piece. Oh yes, I was writing to someone this morning, and it was about the American Constitution. It's the pursuit of happiness, and if we're not happy within ourselves, then the possibility is that we're actually not doing anything of value to someone else. Now, that can be a massive judgment, but I think struggle is really kind of old world, and especially for us Irish Catholic martyrs, we thought we would get a lot of indulgence for suffering, but I actually had to give up that identity. So thanks, Dan, for the opportunity of this, and being willing in the pursuit, being willing to be wrong in the pursuit of what's right for me as an individual. So I might change my mind tomorrow, because I feel nervous about coming out as someone that's in pursuit of happiness. So thank you, everyone, for indulging that.
So how did you put it? So I might change my mind tomorrow to join that.
I found that idea that if it's not fun, it isn't worth doing, very evocative and provocative. And I thought first, oh no, we have to fight for what's right. It doesn't have to always be fun. And then I thought, but so much of what I've experienced in my life of fighting for what's right has been very much fun. And many changes have happened in my lifetime as a result of passionate people having fun trying to make change.
Exactly. And so again, to use as example something of what you said, when again, for the second time at least today, we've had this "oh no" reaction. We could make a new concept here from this. We could say that every time there is an "oh no" in me, here's an opportunity to pause and stay with that and open up whatever is inside of that "oh no" reaction. To really embrace that "oh no," and really again, because this gets so tricky, that doesn't mean we're now pointing an accusing finger to the "oh no, I did that mistake again, I was wrong again." No, opportunity. "Oh no, oh great. Now I have that too as a sign towards something that I could open up and help carry forward." Nati, you like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Dan, for bringing that, because today what happened to me was that the word wrong took a totally different meaning. The word, seeing it in this sense that it can, instead of closing, it can open up. When I know that I can be wrong, and when I'm aware of that all the time, I can be open to other views, to other paradigms, to other ways of looking at the world, at other words of feeling, of sensing. So it's so, and thinking of it in the political realm even more, because then I can be more accepting, more including, more, and it brings such not only richness, but such a different place to be in, like a place where I can be even more compassionate, not only towards myself, but to other people, and try to see their point of view or whatever. So definitely it brought a different, and I shared the way that I was just going to share what Pauline shared, that phrase that Rumi says in the middle there is a garden, and there we shall meet between right and wrong. So thank you, Dan.
I just started asking myself and also started saying something out loud about that. Maybe to move now to a different instance, example would be too much. Maybe we should do some, give you all some time to do some processing at this point, and then we will see if we have towards the end some time left to just mention shortly the other example. We could do that. What I will suggest that you do when sensing into whatever ... you could really do whatever you feel called to do and which way to spend those few minutes for yourselves. You could stay a bit more, pause with something that you had a reaction to, positive, negative, not understanding, whatever. Stay a bit with that. And you could, if you like to, somehow in what was there and what Pauline shared, if there's any political or social issue that occupies you, to sense a little bit into that and to look for what might want some opening.
Welcome back.
Yes, I would love to hear if anyone would like to share something.
It's always this kind of pause of making that transition from
Yeah.
one
There is. Yeah.
context to another. Yeah.
Right.
And sort of seeing what we want to import from the world of the breakout room to the world, the little bit larger world of our whole group.
I'd like to say how helpful it is to include, and I might be wrong, and the being wrong is not only okay, but it's also a door opening into, okay, if I'm wrong, then what might be right? That because my tangle is, I have to get it right. Yeah, I can't make mistakes, but to have the thought of, and I might be wrong. And as I say that, I possibly am wrong. that brings a space for more to arise. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The way you put it reminded me of something Jendin says in the Focusing book. He gives this example when you see a picture on the wall and it doesn't hang straight. So you see what's wrong. And the fact that you can see what's wrong means that you know what right is. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen the wrong.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's just that sometimes, or very often, we need to pause there to find the right, the more.
I'm thinking of Gene's delight in therapy when he would ask the client, is that right? And the client would say, no, it's not right. He would be delighted. Oh, no, it wasn't like that. And it was like something was opening up.
Exactly. Yes. And that again, that is exactly this thing about agency and our need to, in interaction, to have somebody present who will direct us in that way and not to reinforce our limited views of wrong and having to be right and that whole. We need that kind of interaction, and that empowering, that giving back of agency is a social, political move on all levels. Now, I'm going to take the risk here of being wrong. This is something that came up in my dyad just now. This dilemma: should I bring in the second topic or not? And which connected me to me wanting to say something about artificial intelligence, but then it being opposed to this, our ideal of slowing down and pausing and not bringing in too much too fast. So those were the two forces. And then as I had Nancy as my listener, what came up was I was kind of re-encountering my own words, hearing myself saying, and you might decide and you might be wrong, right? So, but now since we have in the chat what Sophie shared, well, I'll read that out first. So she says, your sharing matched my inner state this morning. We reflected in our breakout room about the opening and inclusiveness of keeping in mind that we can be wrong. Or another way to say it, as my breakout room partner preferred to say, we keep in mind that someone else can be right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. We keep in mind that someone else can be right. And I feel moved then to add, and that someone else can also be inside of me. somewhere hiding. That might be another part of me. And it might be in another person, as you. Okay, so again, I might be wrong, but I feel strongly moved to say very shortly something about a huge topic that is really at the edge of what we are living, all of us, right now. And that's what is being called artificial intelligence. And so the reason why I feel called to say something about that in this context is that some time ago, when this whole thing exploded, into our more immediate awareness, because of course it's been around for a very long time, but something has been happening lately. Was that with some friends, we started again trying to asking ourselves, could focusing TAE, Gendlin's philosophy, be helpful in dealing with this? And so I've started doing some kind of initial processing, and we're now setting up a group here in Israel. We already have 5 people, and we'll start in a while doing a TAE process on some of these questions. And so I think I will just kind of drop in a few quotes or sayings by Gendlin to start doing some kind of contribution into saying that Gendlin, surprisingly or not, has a lot to say about this. My initial sense was that we might find inspiration, and since his philosophy is a philosophy of the body, there are things there we might be able to use. And then I was very surprised in finding some places in which he addresses the question quite directly. So just a few teasers. In the process model, the name of chapter 4a is a different concept of the body, not a machine. Okay, so here we have him setting up 2 different, concepts, categories. There is body and there is machine, and they are not the same. And to me, this is a way of starting to think this is what we're being presented with right now, this claim, I don't know what to make of it, but that here are these machines which have qualities of bodies, or we are being told they will very soon become bodies. So I think there's an opportunity here to refine our thinking. This distinction that Gendlin has made, is this a real distinction? Is something changing in these distinctions between machine and body? And and not only me, I think we all are encountering, is that our reactions are very much either or again, polarized reactions. There is huge fear and opposition, and there is this uncritical embracing of this wonderful new world that we're at the brink of. And in between, there is disconnection and apathy. So I think that our practices and our understandings can be helpful in not falling into any of these traps, but to really pause and sense into and clarify to ourselves what are our reactions, our understandings. Now, and then again, a very common reaction is, I don't know anything about this. might be preposterous to try to think that I can make a contribution or I can have any kind of understanding. Now, Gendlin's whole basis for TAE is that we all have understandings. They might not be the scientific understandings, but they are understandings that are very important. And that level of understanding is an important part of the public discussion. There is also, of course, the part about learning more for those who find that interesting and getting a clearer understanding, but to combine that with our body understanding, the one that is not the unit model understanding, is very important. Now, very shortly, one of the categories that I think that we now have an opportunity to break up, although Gendlin in the quote that I will soon read to you does it in a way that it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. I will read, it's just 2 sentences. And I will I'm reading this now so that, you know, an invitation for this to stay with you and maybe to stimulate some kind of further investigations for those who are interested. And so he says, it can be important to know that the actual policies, I would add what he means there, the present policies, what we're already, the kind of societies we're already living in, the actual policies of one's society assume that one is a machine. We are, in fact, in the position of, he says, that robot man, a robot man that he uses as an example. We are, in fact, in the position of, we might say, a robot, except that we don't quite yet appreciate our condition. The way I read this is that he's challenging again our divisions, and he says society already considers us machines, and we are being related to in that way already. So again, to say something very shortly, I think that we have an opportunity here to look into these very, very complex and complicated questions. In what way is society already treating me as a machine? How do I then reconnect or strengthen my relationship to myself as a body? And what really, in this new area that we're entering, what are the distinctions and the differences between us, bodies, and machines? Since we're being told that these machines, maybe already or very soon, will have the ability to feel feelings. So just to mention very shortly another arena, let's say these machines will be taught how to feel or to use feelings. What is the distinction between feelings and felt senses? This resonates, you know, parts of Gendlin's philosophy when he talks about feelings as being what he calls slotted feelings, things that can be unitized. But felt senses, no. That is something different. Okay, so in maybe a bit provocative way, I'm just throwing these thoughts out into the space and we'll see what happens.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Maybe
Thank you.
we could have another helpers meeting about this topic specifically. And Dan, we would love to have you come back in the fall and work with us about this.
That will need some time yet. I feel I'm just at the very, very, very beginning of this. But yeah, let's talk about it at some point.
Thank you, Dan. It was not a mistake.
You really dropped.
It was not a mistake. Oh, what a disappointment.
It was not a mistake. Oh,
Yes, you really dropped a bomb there, Dan, and connecting at least me with the urgency of now. That is a phrase that's coming up all the time. So thank you for that.
Exactly.
Looking
That's what I
forward to-
felt also when sensing into this, that there is a sense of urgency there. Yeah.
and Dan, I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say that our thoughts and blessings are with you in the very important work you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and to all of you.
I think that you're bringing.
June, hi June. You, I think that's when I feel like a machine, when someone talks for me, you know. So, I really, but I do send love to Israel and the peace process, you know. But yeah, Dan, and just maybe to actually voice that. I mean, where society is already treat me as a machine, they might treat me as an object, but not a machine, because I'm not that mobile, you know. So I think the language is important, you know. So
Great.
Thank you so much, Dan. And I think your bringing this up at the end was kind of an instance of what you're talking about. Sort of going outside the lines that we've colored in, and we appreciate it. So we'll see you all next week. And again, Dan, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you all.